Hey there. Yesterday, on the Legacy Standard Bible website, a download was added containing the letter to the Philippians, which you can download in PDF form. I've taken that PDF and I've imported it into some software I've been working on, which lets me quickly compare Bible translations. Let's take a moment to look over the changes in the book of Philippians between the New American Standard Bible and the Legacy Standard Bible, starting with chapter 1. One of the first changes you'll note is in verse 1, the change we've all been warned about. Bondservants is now slaves. Another interesting change is in verses 7, 13 and 14. Imprisonment is now chains, a more literal rendering. You'll notice in verse 14, brethren is now brothers. That's a change we'll see consistently through the entire letter. A more interesting change is in verse 19, where this will turn out for my salvation is now in capitals, indicating an Old Testament quotation. This quote in particular comes from the book of Job, chapter 13-16, and as far as I'm aware is not normally noted as an Old Testament quote. Scroll down to the rest of the verses and we'll see many of the other changes are quite small, showing the light hand the translators are using. In verse 25, convinced in the NASB is now and convinced, and so forth. At the end of verse 27, we have a minor grammatical change, where a semicolon is now a comma. Let's go to chapter 2, and we'll see many of the same changes. Let's look at verse 11 in particular, as there's two changes there that caught my eye. The first is that every tongue will confess is now in capitals, a reference to Isaiah 45:23, matching every knee will bow in verse 10. More interestingly, Lord, instead of being capital L, small O-R-D, is now small caps. Small caps are generally used to show the divine name in the Old Testament, where the divine name is not rendered in English, but is instead shown for the Hebrew word Adonai, Lord, but is differentiated from other occurrences of Adonai with the small caps. Now, the divine name does not appear in the New Testament directly. There is no Jehovah or Yahweh. There is Kyrios, which is Lord. And it looks like they've made an interpretive call that Jesus is Lord is not referring to Christ's lordship in a rule sense, but lordship in a godly sense, that he is part of the Godhead, the Trinity. The rest of the changes are all quite minor. An interesting one is at the end of verse 28. Concerned about you, with about you in italics, in the NASB, is now just concerned in the LSB. They removed the italics, which were words added by the translators, which were not necessarily in the text, but are added to help show the meaning. In chapter 3 we have many of the similar changes I've talked about. Brethren is now brothers. At the end of verse 20, semicolon is now a comma. At the end of verse 10, semicolon is now a comma. Many minor changes showing that this is not a great revision of the NASB. It is not a comprehensive revision. It's a small revision. Let's finish on chapter 4. I find their rendering of chapter 3 quite interesting, where in the NASB it was indeed true companion. I ask you also to help these women who have shared my struggle in the cause of the gospel. is now, indeed I ask you also, genuine companion, help these women who have contended together alongside of me in the gospel. I find there's quite a bit to unpack in that sentence. The words in the gospel perhaps reflect modern evangelical speech much more than in the cause of the gospel, as you often hear the phrase in evangelical circles, in the gospel or working for the gospel. I find true companion to genuine companion to be interesting. Other translations do use true companion or true yokefellow as another common choice. Others will choose to render it as a personal name. But here, the LSB translators have chosen to use the word genuine companion. I think it's a more touching phrase, and if you do not believe it is a person's name, there is no loyal syzygus, I believe that's how you pronounce it, but I think genuine companion could perhaps better reflect Paul's feelings towards this person who he's asking to help these women, Euodia and Syntyche. And here we are at the end. I hope you've found this video informative. Hope it's been a little bit interesting. And please do subscribe to my channel if you wish to see other videos like this. Leave comments below and let me know what you think about the Legacy Standard Bible. It is an exciting translation that's coming up, and I think it is going to be one which is going to be with us for quite some time. I'll see you later.